Here in front of me is the Level 8 Compound Intervals worksheet, and you can download this sheet for free from the Classical Context website so that you can practice and get ready for your exam. Now we're going to do the first bar in each question so that you can see how what we learned on the piano and at the whiteboard applies to what you're doing on your exam. So here's a question you might find on your Level 8 theory exam. Name these compound intervals. Okay, so here's a compound interval. Remember, compound means greater than an octave, and this D to F sharp is indeed greater than an octave. So remember, at the whiteboard we learned that step 1 is to reduce the interval to its simplest form. So let's shrink this down. I'm going to write that F sharp over here, and I'm going to bring this D up an octave. This looks a lot less frightening. This is the simple version of this compound interval, and we can see that this is a third. So this must be a tenth, because we know that tenths and thirds are the same thing. Let's just check that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is a tenth. So we can go ahead and write the distance component of the intervallic label. We know it's tenth. And now we have to figure out the quality. Again, we can look at the simple form. This is a third. I know that F sharp is indeed the third note of D major. So in that case, I know that this is a major third. And because the quality is the same over here, I know that this is also a major tenth. So there we go, it's a major tenth, which is equivalent to a major third. We'll look at the next question. Question number 2 says write a harmonic interval above the given note. Remember, harmonic means they're intervals played at the same time. Write a harmonic interval above the given note. So we need to write a perfect 11th above this E. Now we could count up 11 notes. I'm hoping that you'll remember that 11 is equivalent to 4. So really what we're doing is writing a fourth above this E. And a fourth above this E is A. So this is what this interval would look like in its simple form. And let's go ahead and figure out the quality. I know that A is the fourth note of E major, so this is a perfect fourth. So all I have to do is take this A, transpose it up an octave, and there's my perfect 11th. E, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. E to A is an 11th, and it's perfect, because A is the fourth note of an E major scale. Next one, question 3. We have to write a harmonic interval, but this time it's going to be below the note they gave us. Now the first thing we could do is to count down 12, but I'm hoping you'll remember that 12 is equivalent to a fifth. So instead of doing all that counting, let's just write this B sharp over here again in our own little space, and down a fifth from B is E. Okay, so we know that we're going to transpose this down to that low E, and that's going to be a 12th. Let's concern ourselves with the quality. It asks for an augmented 12th or augmented fifth. We're in the key of E because we use the key of the bottom note. Now, is B sharp the fifth note of E major? No, it's not. B is the fifth note of E major. So when this sharp gets put here, does this note go higher or lower? It goes higher, which means the space is expanded and it's bigger than a perfect fifth, which is an augmented fifth. So this is an augmented fifth. So if we put this e down here, we are going to get the same thing. We are going to get an augmented 12th. There we go. See how easy this is if we just write the simple form? It's too much work to count, and you're nervous on your exam and you might make mistakes. It's very easy to count the wrong amount of lines and spaces and then make a mistake. So the simple intervals are your friends. And the last question. Question number 4. Name the following compound intervals and invert them back into their simple form. And then we have to name the new interval. So here we kind of have to do everything. Let's start by figuring out what this is, and we can do that by putting it into its simple form. So I'm going to keep the F the same, and I'm going to transpose this C flat down an octave. And now I'm seeing this interval in its simple form. And I can see easily that that's a fifth. And I know that fifths and twelfths are the same thing. So I'm going to assume this is a 12th. Let's count to make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's a 12th. So that's the distance. And now let's look back at our simple version. What's the quality of this fifth? Is C flat the fifth note of an F major scale? No, it never has been and it never will be. C is the fifth note of an F major scale. And when this flat gets inserted, the space between those two notes shrinks since it lowers the top note, and we know that one smaller than a perfect fifth is a diminished fifth. So we are looking at a diminished fifth and a diminished 12th. Okay? Now before we even write any notes, we know, because we learned in level 7, what happens when we invert a diminished interval. We should be getting an augmented interval down here. So I'm just going to go ahead and write that. I'm assuming that when I flip this, if I do it correctly, we should be getting an augmented interval. Now let's go ahead and invert this. So remember, inverting compound intervals isn't exactly like inverting simple intervals. We don't literally flip the whole thing upside down. This F is going to go an octave up, and this C flat is going to go an octave down. So if I take this F and put it an octave up, I'm now on this F up here. And if I take this C flat and put it an octave down, I'm now down here on this C flat. This looks like a fourth. And I know for sure when I invert fifths, they do go to fourths. So this is looking good. I'm very confident I've done the right thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a fourth. Is it an augmented fourth? Let's see. Let's cover this flat with our hand and use the white notes. C to F is a perfect fourth. And when this flat got put in here, this bottom note went down, which increased the space, and one bigger than a perfect fourth is an augmented fourth. That is the level 8 compound intervals worksheet. This is tricky in level 8. I would say the most important thing to remember is that how to invert the compound intervals. You don't flip them upside down. It's not really what you're doing. You're transposing in two opposite directions at the same time, and you're going to be left with the simple interval. It's kind of strange that you would have a compound interval and then flip it upside down and get a simple interval, but that is what the RCM textbook wants. That is what the RCM examiners want, so do it like that.